So let's get started, and I think we won't have time to cover everything that this panel would like to say. So hopefully if you loud enough at the end of the panel, we'll have another chance to do this online. At least that's what Lenik promised, that this is just a teaser. So to kick things off, it's interesting because I think the last time I was in a panel in Switzerland, it's about 20 years ago, Daniel Borrell was in the, on one of those panel chairs, and we were talking about how startups and large companies should work together. And here we are 20 years later. So why are we still discussing this? Maybe let's start with you, Lajla. Just how do you fit into this, this panel today?
Thanks a lot, Pascal. So yeah, the two major maybe issues that I would like to bring is first the cultural gap. There is this huge frustration when you start a project with a startup and a big company where there is this misunderstanding, this misalignment. So the lost in translation can last for months. And this brings really bad kind of feelings from each side. And this usually can destroy any good relationships that you should have had. And the second one, I would say, is the speed also of functioning. When you are a startupper, you are basically the boss, you are the secretary, you are the sales guy, you do everything. And when you send that letter for that POC to this huge company, you expect that answer to come right away. And the issue is that those guys are taking time, they have processes, etc., etc. And on the other side, there's so much anticipation. So to bring those two worlds together, it's super difficult. And for example, the role that I'm having right now in Logitech, I think is really important because you are acting as a transcoder between those two worlds. And you're basically bringing those two worlds at the same pace so that they can really work in harmony and understand each other.
So I didn't even provide introductions, but I think you have their names and functions in the back, and I think we'll get to that as they speak. Patrick, would you agree on maybe this kind of gap in terms of speed, understanding? Have you noticed this as well?
Yeah, I think it's definitely the challenge is about pacing. As you are a startup, you are, of course, very innovative, you're agile, you're moving fast, you take all the decisions, and that's true. When you join a company, you have to, of course, look about what kind of company you are joining. So you can have hyperscale company which continue to grow at high pacing where decisions are made fast and that can be matched what are the spirit of the small company, startup. You can also join giant which has a lot of process, and I agree. It's all about trying to understand you're no longer the only decision maker, you have to adapt and then you have to evolve inside this new organization. So I think it will be always the gap because typically, when you grow, you're becoming a bit fat, you're becoming too much bureaucratic. So most of the challenge for those hyperscale companies is to remove this kind of a problem that, in fact, slow down the business and keep the agility as a startup. So I think it will be, I would say, an ongoing challenge to have both track due to the pacing.
So we'll see in a few minutes what we can do about it. But Patrick, I'm really also hoping that you can maybe cheer up a bit the audience, and also from an entrepreneur, try to kind of explain us a bit like what you've noticed on this topic.
Yeah. This gap is a very major challenge of a startup like CYSEC. We are a B2B company, and data security and the procurement process of the company is so complex for a startup like us. And this gap is 24 or 12 or 24 months of procurement, and for a startup 24 months of procurement is not so easy to have, and there are some, you need to be compliant, you need to have some certification, and for a startup certification is not so easy, and maybe it's one of the rule of TrustValley to be able to have to generate this trust for a product from startup in order to accelerate the procurement to enterprise. Yeah. That's one of the challenge, and sometimes the second challenge we have in a startup like CYSEC is there are internally of the company some innovation project, and we are in competition with that. And maybe to have a marketplace like this one, it will be easy for generate this trust and to say to the internally team in the company to say, no, we are no in competition, but we can collaborate together. And yeah.
I think that's perfect for Guillaume, right? I consider you as a kind of corporate innovation guru in your own right. Guillaume, do you agree? I mean, does external and internal innovation kind of compete with one another?
I don't think they do. I think internal and external innovation do compete with the normal business of companies because we talk to startups, so startups definitely at a very different pace and all the companies on a different pace. I work in innovation and it's difficult sometimes to explain what innovation is about and what the pace of innovation, what the risks you take to the operations. So, in introduction, you said that you talked about that already 20 years ago. It's not solved, but at least there is some theories around it now.
So we better able to define the problem. We don't have the solution.
Yeah, to name it, and that's one theory is about the explore-exploit continuum, which explore is all about taking risk, failing, and exploit is about predictability and knowing where you go, ROI, etc. So I think it's really this continuum that we see.
So is it a language? And I'm coming back to what you were saying, Lajla. You were saying I'm a transcoder, right? Or I'm a translator, basically. So is it just language? Is it mindset? Or, especially in a place maybe like Switzerland, it's not necessarily I would say super fast moving. It's even cultural, or what have you been able to do as kind of a guru in those fields as well?
First, it's a lot about the mindset, but I'd like to take away that stigma that Switzerland is so kind of slow. It's not true, guys. We're really good, and I think that we've made so much, I think, in the last 10 years, and we should stress that first. But it's really about the mindset. People have to listen more to each other, I think. And it's really about taking so much more time to try to understand what is coming as information towards you than kind of rather directly preparing the answer. This is what I see in the eyes of the startup guys. They're so much kind of eager to start that they don't even listen at the information that is coming towards them. I don't know what you think, Patrick. Yeah. How is it for you?
Yeah, I think it's in function of vertical, from my point of view, because if we speak about security and adapt security innovation internally of company, and in the financial vertical, you can find this kind of mindset to accelerate. If you go in some traditional one, like industry or in the grid, there are no this kind of power right now in Switzerland for adapt security solution. It's more this mindset, cybersecurity, you can find in the financial services, and you can accelerate in this kind of field. But the other one is more difficult to accelerate.
Patrick, have you seen those mindsets, maybe the two sides of it? Because you're in a US company, I think very well known. You're operating in Switzerland for quite a while. How does it look like internally, and how have you been able to break through maybe through some of those barriers?
Yeah, I think it's true that Switzerland is moving much faster than what we see. And that's a positive sign. But I think the main difference was highlighted this morning as well during an interview is that the US mindset about thinking big, and I think it's looking about the worldwide, I would say, potential. So that's where maybe Europe, maybe Switzerland feel a bit behind, and we do see that sometimes looking, okay, we can do here, it's good, we're starting to grow the business. So, and we have the experience on acquiring company that was like 10, 15 people, great technology, up to really expand, and the challenge that we had was really to move the owner and the people that was still in the company, running company, to move from running the company himself and leverage, in fact, the scale we have. And that's one of the challenges. And it's still a learning, I would say, journey for them, because, of course, suddenly you move from like managing everything to potentially leveraging, let's say, 5,000 people worldwide, reaching all the markets at the same time. So demand is coming very big, and I don't think there is necessarily training for that.
Interesting. So let's stay on this kind of seed to scale up kind of things, because I think we heard it this morning. A company is really strong technologically speaking, and then it got gobbled up somewhere. How does it look for you, Guillaume? Have you seen this where the startups or the entrepreneur is maybe kind of within a certain amount of success, but then has trouble kind of going through the next stage? Or have you had any experience of this innovation cycle, basically?
So what we have built an innovation process and funnel where we try to be very close to the lean startup model, etc. internally, and also for outsourcing innovation, where we go through a problem fit, then the solution fit, and then the market fit. And then after we scale. And definitely when we start scaling, we see, I mean, scaling is really a different level of funding and of money. Yeah? It does require a significant amount of money and of resources. And I really see there the big gap, I think, in the global innovation process. It's really, there is, before we can really sort of do MVPs and work a little bit in isolation, but then after there's really a big gap to go to the next, to the scaling. I think this is...
Lajla, I think you've seen as well this from an investor perspective, right? What are some of your observations on this kind of crucial stage, certainly in the innovation process, but for an entrepreneur too?
Yeah, as Patrice said, in Switzerland, for example, we have to dream big. But it's also about putting that right structure to get to that scale stage, where you have that middle management layer. Basically, you have to have the CEO just let go and not. I've done that several times with companies. I literally did put like all the tasks on the board, and I put little colors on the tasks, and I said, in 2 months, let's meet again. And I want you to have taken like half of the tasks. The color must be off. That means that you learn to delegate. And it was really that, because this is their baby, you know? They're really attached to it. So they have to let go for the good of the company. And when you are there, there with them, you again play that transcoder. You reassure them. We often tend to forget that companies are about people, and they're sensitive. You know, they have their moody days, and you have to kind of also absorb some of those fluctuations for that company to really go as smoothly as possible forward.
I really love that point. I think it's great. I'm coming to you, Patrick, in a minute, but I think the human element into it is certainly central. And I think for the entrepreneurs here that just kind of pitch their business, I hope you see why the program Tech for Trust is so good, because you could have Lajla giving you all of the tasks that you have during the day. So I think it's great. Thank you, Lajla, for being part of it. But Patrick, yeah, tell us a bit. Have you gone through this transition? Are you ready to go through it? Or let's use you as an example.
Yeah, no, for example, yeah, we closed our seed extension this summer of around 4 million Swiss francs, and now we try to scale. We have more of a 25 person, but we will try to onboard 5 new person for the sales and marketing team, and that's something to mention by Lajla, is that it's not so easy to find a team or talent for the sales and marketing, which is a challenge we have right now. And we're looking for 5 person in case there are some person inside of the team in this auditorium. And yeah, that's the key word is team, is talent, and that's from my point of view the challenge for Accelerate.
So the sales and marketing is the crucial element, right?
Right
We
now,
often say, hey, great talent base, maybe in more kind of technical field, but really the ones that can do the market introductions, this kind of
idea that when you scale, you validate before that your technology is a good technology, you have some market fit, and you have some traction, and after to scale, you need to validate the business model and to have a person that can accelerate with you in this new business model.
So I'm going to turn to our corporate innovators, and is this maybe a role for the corporations to play? I don't know, Guillaume, if there's something you've done with some company. I imagine you've done. Maybe you can walk us through an example, but take a company that's basically going to the market, of course aligning with them, and then kind of taking them under your wing as kind of a corporate partner. Is it a viable solution?
Well, it clearly depends on what the company or what the major company wants to do. I mean, I remember when I was working for a large watchmaking company who acquired a small retailer by then who was very gifted at doing things online. And basically, the idea was to learn from them. So it was not to let them grow that much. I mean, it was really to learn whatever we could learn. So this is a sort of relationship. If both partners agree, then fine, you know. But I think this really need to be clear from the beginning what's the objective and to align on the objective of both partners. Now with SGS, we tend to acquire companies to grow, and we have a significant external growth. So it may be small companies, it may be larger companies, but definitely the objective is really to grow. So here is a totally different mindset. So it really depends. Huh? It depends.
So the acquisition is easier than working with the startup? That's the message?
Well, it's very different. Acquisition is a company, it's a smaller company, but normally the CEO already has done this delegation of tasks, and they have already their whole operational model, and sometimes they even have systems that are actually better than ours. Startups, typically, they need to scale, and they need to understand the whole constraints of working in a secure and clear and predictable environment. So yeah, there is a difference in what we need to do in terms of mindset.
Got it, got it. We only have a couple minutes left, so it's going fast. And I'd like to be a bit practical, so let's go through the panel and maybe have a piece of advice. It can be either something that's wishful thinking or at least a desire for the TrustValley to accomplish as a group, right? I mean, we got the whole ecosystem together, so we can dream about being here a year from now and having more scale-up, more money, more collaboration. Or it can be a practical tip that you want to share with some of the, again, entrepreneurs and startups that are in the room. And I'll start with you, Patrick.
From my point of view, it's the real one of the rule of TrustValley will be to generate this trust between corporate and startup, and to accelerate this procurement process, and to reduce this gap between company and enterprise and startup.
So we need to take all of the sourcing managers of all the large company and they basically cut the process in half or something. All right, let's do that. So all of you that have corporate roles, and I have to say, I've seen some RFPs around. It's not easy. So I can I can feel the pain.
We need to innovate.
You need to innovate. Yeah, you need to keep the security in good process. But I can see your point. Who goes next? Lajla, you go next.
Maybe one tip. I don't know if it's a tip or an image that I always like to give to myself. Why do those big corporates need startups? And I always see the big corporates as huge boats that can navigate even if you have stormy weather. And then why is it so important that you surround yourself by those little tiny kind of boats that are paper made? It's because they can sense every little new wave that is coming your way, and that you are just too big to even see. And for them, it's a matter of survival. So I think that this is healthy challenging. That's what I would like to bring today. And it's about collaboration. So again, we have to listen to each other much more. That would be my only tip.
Fantastic. So we go sailing next year, and we'll see which boats are still around. Patrice.
Yeah, I think maybe an advice more on where we're acting on the cybersecurity space. It's more and more a very complex environment to resolve and solve. So I think it's the challenge that we are moving very fast, and technology need to be, at least in the way you build it, be able to be attached to a more kind of platform answer, because there is no longer this kind of a point product solution on this space. So think about, how your product or your solution can fit to a more platform, and that may exist, in fact, integration with more large corporate, and even to sell to customer, because then you can leverage, in fact, those large companies like we are to push even before acquisition, in fact, your product on the market.
Great. So this is the whole ecosystem play, right?
The ecosystem.
Think about how you fit within an ecosystem, what's your added value, find the first one, and then develop around as the ecosystem grows, basically. Very smart. Guillaume?
On my side, I like the metaphor with the boat. We actually use more or less the same one, a bit different, but the same thing with boats and small and big boats. So I think this is a very valid comparison. For me, I think it's really the Tech for Trust, which is one of the key projects of TrustValley, is great because we need that tension. And here again, I agree with Lajla. I think it's very productive, both for large organizations, because it forces us to think a little bit outside this exploit model, and we see that, and it helps us understand what innovations are there, and we cannot find everything, and we're really listening to all what's happening, and I think it's fascinating to hear everything that we heard from the startups today, and we've got lots of things to learn. And I think also we've got lots of things to give, which is the structure, how to get bigger, how to grow, potentially funding, partnerships, whatever. So I think really this is a great forum to have.
Fantastic. So I think I would agree with everyone in the last 20 seconds. Just in terms of community, this is all here, right? I used to work, I think a lot of you would remember or even work still with the SwissNext network. We were talking about connecting the dots, and I think that's something, honestly, I learned in the US, but the secret is out, right? It's literally like trying to find ways of connecting one another, having a collaboration purpose, finding ways to grow together. And then again, every occasion is good to get together. So I can invite some of you to go skiing or surfing or whatever, just kind of, get together, because this is what I think a lot of people do well, or running for that matter, whatever works for everyone. But let's just kind of use this time all together to make it purposeful. So with this, looking forward to hearing more from the entrepreneur, and huge congrats to the panel today.